These cursed objects that Ed and Lorraine Warren warned us about should never ever be touched. Annabelle, the doll that tried to unalive a man. You've seen her in the movies, but the real Annabelle is far more terrifying because she doesn't just move, she attacks. This seemingly harmless Raggedy Ann doll was gifted to a nursing student in the 1970s. At first, it was just the usual creepy stuff, moving rooms, changing positions, strange notes appearing on parchment paper they didn't own, but things escalated fast. A friend of the girls mocked Annabelle one night and even grabbed her, daring her to do something. 3 days later, he passed away in a motorcycle accident, and witnesses say he was laughing about the doll right before he crashed. His girlfriend survived but swore they had been fighting about Annabelle before he lost control of the bike. When Ed and Lorraine Warren took Annabelle, she was locked in a specially made glass case, and even then, she didn't stop. One visitor tapped on the case, daring the doll to do her worst. Hours later, he crashed his motorcycle too. The Warrens say Annabelle doesn't forgive disrespect ever. So yeah, they definitely do not want you touching her or even tapping on her glass. The shadow doll, summon it in your sleep and you'll never wake up. This doll wasn't made for play, it was crafted for rituals. Its eyes are glass, its bones, real animal bones, and the feathers on its head are from sacrificial rites. The Warrens call it the shadow doll, now rumored to have been used in black magic. It's said that if someone photographs the doll and shows the image to another person, that person can have nightmares so vivid they can actually pass away in their sleep. One man reported waking up paralyzed, seeing the doll at the foot of his bed, even though he'd never seen it in person, only in a photo. He was hospitalized after suffering cardiac arrest the same night. Lorraine claimed that even being in the same room with the doll for too long gave her intense psychic attacks. It's now kept in a sealed container with prayers and protective symbols etched around it. Still, some say the doll likes to be looked at, so maybe don't stare too long. The Satanic Idol found in the woods, still whispering today. This isn't just a statue, it's a gateway. The Satanic Idol was found deep in the Connecticut woods during a police investigation. Locals claim satanic rituals had been happening and the statue was at the center of it. It depicts a horned beast, half goat, half man, clearly not meant for Sunday school. When Ed Warren brought it to the museum, he actually warned visitors never to stand too close. Why? Because the idol is said to radiate oppression. Investigators who touched it suffered extreme paranoia, night terrors, and some even developed aggressive behaviors. One skeptic tried to debunk it, by filming himself touching the idol. His camera died immediately, and he ended up leaving his job just days later, claiming he was being watched constantly and waking up with claw marks on his body. To this day, museum staff avoid cleaning around it. It collects dust, but it's nobody's priority to wipe it down and risk their lives. The organ that plays itself, it starts with a single note late at night when the museum is locked when no one is near it. Now, the organ in the Warrens Museum isn't just haunted, it's possessed, according to multiple accounts. Given to the Warrens by a family who swore the instrument would play on its own, even after they removed the power source, the organ continues to create eerie, discordant melodies with no explanation at all. One of the Warrens' former assistants said they once stayed late to document its behavior. Around 2:30 a.m., the organ started playing a very slow minor key that basically the air turned, ice cold, and the power just cut out. When the lights came back on, a single rose had appeared on the organ's bench, even though no one had been near it for hours. Ed believed the organ served as a conduit, calling, spirits to gather. Now, Lorraine never allowed it to be played, fearing what might answer.
Number 3, the Grand Grimoire. That is so fun to say. This next entry has been nicknamed the Gospel of Satan. So if you're looking for an indication as to whether or not this book is, evil, there you go. They had to put that on a sticker, put it on the cover right next to the Oprah's Book Club recommendation. This book is said to have originally been written by a man possessed by the devil sometime in the 16th century. It's an infamous occult text and is said to contain dark incantations, spells and rituals, tools on how to force demons to do one's bidding, and even some instructions for a little necromancy 101 for fledgling dead raisers. It's not all brimstone and hellfire though. There are also reports on how to make pacts with spirits for personal gain, rituals to win the lottery, talk to ghosts, make yourself invisible, and even adorably, how to win love. Never heard of a demon working to help someone fall in love. Now, all that sounds cool, definitely. I know I would love to have like a little skeleton minion who could help me with chores, maybe be like my little buddy. I love playing a necromancer in Skyrim, but these things don't really work out if you don't know what you're doing. Take a look at Full Metal Alchemist, that didn't work, they didn't know what they were doing. Even opening this book is considered equivalent to selling your soul to the devil. Soon as you crack the spine, it's like signing the contract. Because of the book's nefarious reputation, the original copy of the manuscript has been sealed away inside the Vatican's secret archives, and not currently available to the public. So I don't think whatever they're listing on Amazon as the Grand Grimoire for $10 is the real Grand Grimoire. Number 2, the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript has got to be one of my favorite stories of a mysterious manuscript ever. I guess that's why I put it at number 2. Unlike a lot of entries on this list, it's actually very easy to come across a digital copy of the Voynich manuscript. It's available to read online. The only trouble is reading it honestly probably won't do you a lick of good, since it's written in a language no one has ever heard of and there's no record of it ever having existed. Yale University has the entire thing up and available online if you're feeling confident enough that you can take a crack at it and feel like banging your head against a brick wall for a few hours. The book is a handwritten, hand-illustrated codex of 240 pages of pure mystery, featuring gorgeous illustrations and typography, and what the book is about is your guess is as good as mine, honestly. Carbon dating suggests that it stems from the 15th century, and analysis of the style of the text and illustrations within suggests that it could have been penned during the Italian Renaissance. But just about every single aspect of this thing is shrouded in mystery. We don't even know what it's truthfully called. The Voynich manuscript is the name it was given after the initial owner, Wilfrid Voynich, purchased it in 1912 and brought it to public attention for the first time. Sorry, not the first owner, I'm sure several other people owned it before him. As such, the language inside the book is occasionally referred to as Voynichese. Now, some pages are missing, lost to time completely, and the pages we do have are just a puzzle. Some are foldable sheets of various sizes, some pages have wondrously drawn diagrams or illustrations showing things like plants, some fictional, some real, and astrological symbols, drawings of people. Over the years, there have been several efforts to try and decode and document the book and figure out just what it is. A prevailing theory, admittedly a boring one, is that it's a guide to botany written in a mysterious script, a forgotten language, an uncrackable code, an incredibly convoluted hoax. Of course, with any good mystery, there are some wild theories. Some say the Voynich manuscript could be written from an extraterrestrial gifted to humanity, or written in demonic script perhaps, or that biblical language that we were mentioning in the Book of Soyga a few points ago. Like I said, it's available online, so I leave this up to you. If you manage to crack it, let us know down below in the comments. We're all clamoring for it. And number 1, the Codex Gigas. When it comes to cursed and demonic books, the Codex Gigas is one of the biggest ones around. Literally. Codex Gigas translates to giant book, which isn't exactly a scary name. When you see the size of this behemoth, it starts to make a little bit more sense. This thing is massive. 2 feet long. Now, giant, oversized, illuminated manuscripts were pretty common around the area the book was penned, but this one stood out for its immense size and the dark rumors surrounding the supposedly cursed text. Don't even try reading this thing, just lifting it'll give you a hernia. That's the curse. It's occasionally been dubbed Satan's Bible due to the legend surrounding its origin. It's a good story, so get cozy. Supposedly, the legend goes that a monk by the name of Herman the Recluse, which is also what they used to call me, was condemned to death for heresy and was to be walled up alive and starved. In a desperate plea to save himself, Herman tried to convince the prior and the abbot as a whole that if he could pen a manuscript to honor God's glory, and that it would contain all of human knowledge and all of human history in one book, and if he could pen it in one night, he would be let free. The abbot agreed, thinking this was, of course, impossible. Herman wrote until midnight, wearing his fingertips down, and in a moment of desperation, made a prayer to Lucifer and asked for his eternal soul in exchange for the book's completion in order to repent for his sins. I totally get it. I gotta be honest, I have done some pretty nutso stuff trying to make sure my scripts get in time for deadline. Haven't quite sold my soul to the devil yet. I usually just rail Red Bulls, but I'd probably make a similar deal under a similar deadline. Now, I don't want to poke any holes in Herman's logic here, but I will say maybe selling your soul to the devil is part of the reason you got into this mess in the first place, because that does sound a little bit like heresy, but it's not my place to judge. I'm not an archdeacon. A variation of the legend states that Herman worked for years on the manuscript, day and night, but still was unable to complete it in his lifetime and asked for the devil's assistance. Anyway, no matter the story, the legend states that Satan signed the Bible with a particularly terrifying illustration of himself. I mean, take a look at it, it's horrifying looking. The book contains a birth of information. Like they said, it was supposed to be everything humanity had attained up to that point in one big book. These days, the Codex Gigas is preserved in the Natural Museum in Sweden, where you can admire the penmanship of Herman the Recluse and his ghost author Satan.
The conjuring mirror that showed something looking back. Now, not all mirrors show your reflection, or just your reflection. Some, like the conjuring mirror, show something far darker. This object came into the Warrens' possession after being used in a ritual of catoptromancy, I think I'm saying that right, an ancient form of divination that involves summoning spirits through mirrors. Now, the mirror was reportedly used by occult practitioners who believed they could contact the deceased. Now, instead, they unleashed something terrifying. Witnesses described the mirror as alive, reflecting faces that weren't actually in the room, sometimes with twisted, decayed features. People who stare too long into it often reported losing a sense of time in general, or just standing motionless for hours as if they were hypnotized. Others swore that after looking into the mirror, dark shapes began to appear in their homes, following them into corners, watching silently. One chilling account involved a man who claimed he saw his own corpse staring back at him from the glass. Now, days later, he actually suffered a fatal accident eerily similar to what he had described. Another visitor swore she saw hands pressing out from the inside of the mirror as if something was trapped within it, desperate to escape. The Warrens labeled the conjuring mirror as one of the most cursed items in their collection. They warned that using it was like opening a doorway that you just couldn't shut. Even Ed Warren admitted he refused to stare into it for fear of bringing something back with him. Now, at the museum, the mirror had to be covered in a very heavy cloth whenever not on display. I mean, Lorraine insisted that even brief exposure could infect a person with lingering paranormal energy. To this day, many people refuse to even look at photographs of it. That's how scary it is.
Number 5. The Manson Blood Painting. Charles Manson was the infamous cult leader who formed a group of mostly young women, teaching them that they were the reincarnations of the original Christians and that he was Jesus Christ. Manson began using his followers for extortion, taking a music teacher who they believed had inherited a large fortune hostage in his home and demanding that he join the cult and turn over the money. The man maintained that they were mistaken, and Manson attacked him with a sword before having one of his followers finish the job. In the cult's most famous incident, Manson sent 4 family members to the home of Hollywood actress Sharon Tate with instructions for them to end the lives of Tate and the 4 guests who were staying with her. The next night, these family members were joined by 3 others and brought by Manson to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, where they broke in and tied up the 2 residents at Manson's instructions. He then ordered them to dispatch the victims and left. Although it hasn't been conclusively proven, the Manson family are believed to be responsible for at least 15 other deaths, with Manson himself claiming at one point that he was responsible for 35 total deaths. Manson was apprehended and remained in prison until his execution in 2017. Even while in custody, he maintained a dedicated group of admirers, and after his death, his ashes were scattered at his funeral, and an admiring artist gathered some of them up. The artist, Ryan Almighty, then used their own blood in order to paint a picture of the cult leader, using Manson's real ashes to fill in the eyes on the portrait. Many people who see the painting report it having a charged feeling, and many people refuse to look into the eyes of the Manson painting out of fear for what could happen. It doesn't have too much of a reputation for being haunted, but come on. If ever there was a painting that was begging to be haunted or cursed, it would be the one made with the actual human remains of Charles Manson. This painting should be destroyed or locked away in the Warrens Museum just to be safe. Why wait until more creepy activity is linked to this disturbing painting? Number 4. The Hanging Man. This haunted painting is actually linked to a haunted photograph, making it twice as haunted as some of the art on this list. It all started when a photographer named James Kidd took a seemingly innocuous photo of a wooden cart next to a barn. Kidd thought nothing of it until he had the photo developed and saw a ghostly figure had made its way into the frame. On the left side of the cart, he could see a headless and hanging man. He showed the photo to others, who searched for any sign of doctoring, but could find none. It was then that this painting caught the attention of a painter named Laura P. Laura claims that she felt drawn to the image and decided that she had to make an oil painting based on the photograph. While painting the picture, she reported feeling deeply uneasy, but she pushed through to finish her art. The painting was hung at a local business, but was soon taken down after it reportedly began moving on its own and caused several important papers to go missing. Laura then put the painting up in her own home. She soon began to experience strange occurrences. These included objects being knocked over or broken, mysterious knocking on the doors, strange leaks, and perhaps most disturbing, the apparition of the headless man in her home. Once word of the haunted painting got out, she received several offers from collectors to buy the painting. She has so far refused, claiming that she is afraid of what the painting could do in the homes of others. If this is truly the only thing preventing her from getting rid of this painting, which is apparently causing her to see headless ghosts, perhaps the right move is to give the painting to the Warren Museum, who, if nothing else, would know what they are signing up for and could take it off of her hands.
The cursed wedding dress, beautiful white laced with tragedy though. This wedding dress belonged to a woman named Anna Baker in the 1800s. Now she was wealthy and in love with a poor man her father basically forbid her to marry. Now her father locked her in the house and Anna passed away very bitter, heartbroken, and alone. The dress was never worn and ever since it's moved on its own. When the dress was placed in the Warrens Museum, it started to rise off the hanger by itself, especially during full moons. Museum goers reported seeing the sleeves lift and sway like arms dancing. Now others said they could hear sobbing near it, even when they were completely alone. One visitor tried to mock the story, saying loudly, "Guess even ghosts get stood up." Now that night she reported waking up to find her wedding ring had disappeared from her locked drawer, and in its place was an old rusted nail curled like a hook. Now no alarms had gone off, no signs of a break-in, just Anna making her point. The devil's rocking chair possessed during an exorcism. Now this chair isn't famous for who sat in it, but for what entered the room while they did. The devil's rocking chair is linked to the infamous Devil Made Me Do It case from 1981, if you remember that. It was during the exorcism of 11-year-old David Glatzel that Ed and Lorraine Warren witnessed the chair levitate, shake violently, and even launch itself across the room. Now it's believed that while David was possessed, a demon attached itself to the chair, and when another boy, Arn Cheyenne Johnson, later sat in it, he was also cursed. That same year, Arn viciously unalived his landlord, claiming demonic possession as his defense in court. It was actually the first time in US history that not guilty by reason of demonic possession was ever attempted. The chair was eventually placed in the Warrens Museum, but after multiple staff members reported being pushed, scratched, and even hearing, weird crazy voices near it, the chair was permanently just tied off to the side. Now, no one sits in it anymore, it's hanging up, and honestly that's for good reason. The doll tied to a series of fatal accidents. It looks like something from a voodoo shop, but this small handmade figure covered in wax pins and an old fabric is linked to a trail of tragedy. The doll was confiscated from a home where 2 people passed away under very mysterious circumstances. Now, according to the Warrens, it was being used as part of a curse, but even after the doll was removed, the passings didn't stop. A neighbor who had handled the doll later passed away in a very freak fall. A delivery man who entered the room with the doll collapsed with a heart attack on site. Now the doll now sits in the Warrens collection, never to be touched without gloves, holy water, and a prayer. Lorraine refused to be in the same room with it alone. Visitors report feeling pressure in their chest and just unexplained dread near the display. There's actually no official name for this one, but amongst museum staff, it's simply called the Doll of Doom. Each one of these objects remains locked up behind glass, protected by blessings, crosses, and the energies of the Warrens' lifetime of spiritual defense. But make no mistake, these objects are still active, still watching, still waiting.
Number 5, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. The Book of Abramelin Abramelin, or more formally, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, is an old Jewish magic text that is thought to date back at some point in the 14th or 15th century. Now, it wasn't the initial publication of this book that gave it its notoriety. Instead, it was when it was 19th and 20th century magicians who were in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a British secret society dedicated to the practice, research, and upholding of old occult magic ways. But hush hush, you didn't hear that from me. One of the founders of the Golden Dawn, S.L.M. Mathers, created the first ever English translation of the book in the 1890s, drawing from a previously established 17th century French translation. Now, Mathers' translation quickly became the definite magic text of the 19th century, eventually helping inspire Aleister Crowley to inspire his system of magic, the legendary occultist and fixture of one of the best Ozzy Osbourne songs ever. That solo still goes, man. Now, there's all kinds of spells and magic inside this text. Some real highlights include spells on how to conjure somebody and turn them into a donkey, how to summon a monkey to do your bidding, that sounds great, and how to bring forth spirits to fetch you goods. The big key point in this text, however, is an epic, multi-month spanning ritual that, if performed correctly, will allow the sorcerer to commune with their own guardian angel. The book theorizes that everyone has a guardian angel and that they are another part of their essence, a spiritual other half of yourself. The ritual involves, I don't know how to say this politely. You have to, well, they say you have to get blissfully intimate with your other half. Once the honeymoon period is over, the caster then has to summon up and conquer unredeemed spirits of the infernal regions of hell to conquer them, and then they'll be able to master the spirit domain. That sounds like a lot of irredeemed spirits. I hope my angel might help out a little bit with that. This all sounds very complicated, so all things considered, maybe it's for the best that this one's locked away. Seems like heavy reading, not before bedtime. And if you're looking for more true tales of terror, fake frightening fribs, cursed relics, ancient evils, aliens, cryptids, conspiracies, ghouls, goblins, and pretty much everything spooky you can think of, Top 5 Scary is the place to be. Stay subscribed, but way more importantly, stay scary. Okay, let's keep going. Whole lot more video to get through. Number 4. Book of Soyga. The Book of Soyga, also known by a more complicated name, the Alderia Siva Soyga Vocor, is an occult text that hails back from the 15th century. I'm pretty sure just saying that name out loud in front of the camera, I probably caused a curse on the office, so I'm sorry about that. This text would have been lost to time, just another forgotten cursed manuscript, if it weren't for the obsessive efforts of John Dee, a 16th century polymath who had his hands in just about every field of study. Polymath is a fancy word for a guy who studies just about everything, and Dee practiced chemistry, physics, astronomy, and also the occult. You know, there's always more to learn, right? Mr. Dee was particularly interested in contacting angels to learn the secrets of the universe. And this book contains a litany of recipes for magic spells and all sorts of writings on demonology and astrology, but most importantly, and what caught Mr. Dee's attention, is that the book is said to include the names and genealogies of all of heaven's angels. Dee believed that the book contained an ancient divine message written in a language spoken to by Adam, the true unspoiled word of God. That's a pretty big statement. Now, much like the Voynich manuscript, which I'll mention a little later in the video, so put a pin in that for now, it had 36 cryptic tables that remained undeciphered for centuries. Dee attempted at one point to crack the code with the help of a mystic who convinced Dee that he could channel the angels for him. Dee allegedly was so desperate to unlock the contents of this book that when his mystic told him it was part of the ritual that he be allowed a night with John Dee's wife, he agreed. That's the oldest trick in the book, man. The old "I'll let you talk to angels if I can go out with your wife" gamble. Ugh, can't believe you fell for it. Dee's wife would end up birthing a son, Theodore Dee, the fatherhood of which was disputed, to say the least. John Dee was never able to crack the code in his lifetime and decipher the Book of Soyga, and perhaps for the best, as it was said he was warned that man was never meant to uncover those secrets, and that knowledge would end his life. The book is now said to reside in the British Library, although digital copies are available. Read it at your own risk, and if somebody says they can translate it for you, just make sure you really read everything on the fine print in the contract before you sign that, okay? Just looking out for you.
Number 3. The John Wayne Gacy clown paintings. John Wayne Gacy was the notorious serial murderer operating out of Chicago from the late 60s until the late 70s. He would lure victims into his home with the promise of illicit substances. He would then trick the young men into putting on a pair of handcuffs, claiming that he was going to demonstrate a magic trick. He would then force himself on them, hurt them for his own amusement, and then finally asphyxiate them, before hiding their remains in his crawl space. In the 11 years that he operated, he was responsible for the deaths of over 33 people before he was arrested on December 21st, 1978, and sentenced to execution by lethal injection. Gacy had appeared for years to be the perfect family man, being an active member of his community, and in a detail that the media became obsessed with, volunteering as a clown who would perform at parades, fundraisers, and children's hospitals. This was unrelated to his crimes, was such an odd detail that the press dubbed him the Killer Clown. This apparently served as the inspiration for Stephen King's It, and since then, clowns just haven't been able to catch a break. While awaiting his fate on death row, Gacy took up painting, creating several portraits of himself dressed as Pogo the Clown. He is believed to have created over 2,000 paintings in prison before his death in 1994. After this, his attorney auctioned the paintings off, with several of them being purchased and burned in a bonfire attended by the families of his victims. Of course, this just made the paintings that remained more valuable and rare, and they have been known to show up in auctions where they are purchased for tens of thousands of dollars by people with questionable morals and taste. Some of these collectors came to regret their purchase of the Gacy clown paintings, with some claiming to experience vivid nightmares and visions of Gacy's crimes and victims sitting at the foot of their beds, after having looked at the paintings for too long. If such claims are genuine, then perhaps it would be better to take these disturbing paintings and have them locked in the deepest, darkest corner of the Warrens' museum, to prevent them from doing any harm to the people who come across them. Number 2. The Anguished Man. The tale of this rather disturbing-looking painting is strange and steeped in mystery. Every scant piece of information we have on it is more unsettling than the last. The painting of a featureless man who seems to be screaming was apparently painted by a deeply troubled artist who mixed his own blood with the paints in an effort to get the right shade of red. Not long after completing it, the artist took his own life, and the painting found its way into a woman's care. She kept it for many years, but claimed that once she put the painting up, her and her family began to see a dark, shadowy figure roaming about the house. At night, they would hear strange sounds like footsteps and crying. The woman took the painting down and kept it locked in her attic for 25 years until she died, leaving the painting to its current caretaker, Sean Robinson. Sean had been warned by his grandmother that the painting was haunted, but he thought little of it. Robinson kept the painting in his basement for about a decade before rediscovering it and putting it up. Once again, the family began seeing the dark, shadowy figure roaming the halls and hearing the sounds of weeping and moaning during the night. Sean began leaving a camera on by the painting to try and get evidence of its paranormal nature, and upon reviewing the footage, heard some odd noises and saw evidence of doors opening and closing, seemingly by themselves, and the painting falling over onto the ground. As time went on, the activity became more and more intense, with his wife seeing a strange mist and an unseen force pushing his son down the stairs. Things went from bad to worse when guests who came to see the painting began reporting intense and sudden nosebleeds. Sean takes the painting out from time to time to show it to paranormal investigators and television programs who want to hear his story, but otherwise, the Anguished Man is apparently kept locked away in a safe location to prevent any further harm from coming to unwitting people. As much as this might be the right move, someone like Sean, with very limited knowledge of the paranormal, might not be the right person to take care of such a dangerous piece of art, and it might be safer for him and everyone else if it were handed over to people with more experience dealing with cursed and dangerous artifacts, such as the people who run the Warrens Occult Museum. Who knows, perhaps the painting would prefer it, and would start up a friendly relationship with the Annabelle doll, and the two would become less evil, as they have each finally found a true bosom buddy. Or maybe it would just make things worse. The point is, we will never know for sure unless we try. Number 1. The hands resist him. This painting, featuring a sad-looking young boy and a creepy doll-like girl standing in front of a window, separating them from a series of hands emerging from the darkness, was created by an artist named Bill Stoneham in 1972. It was hung in a gallery. Both the owner of the gallery and the first critic to ever review the painting both died suddenly within a year of looking at the painting. The artist then took possession of the painting painting, but claimed that the two children in the painting would sometimes move, leaving the frame, and on one occasion, coming out of the painting itself into the real world. The artist put the painting on eBay, telling its stories, and many people who simply looked at the listing claimed to experience odd happenings, such as hearing voices or chills, or becoming ill. The painting sold for a little over $1,000, but if it is really so powerful, perhaps it should be taken to the occult museum, where the harm it can do can be limited as much as possible.